Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and welcome back to Slang Of Ages Podcast. Hi, I'm your host, Preston Frazier. And today we're going to talk about one of my favorite albums. We're talking about Toto 20. If you have listened to the podcast before, this podcast is about my favorite albums. Now, I will be interviewing people throughout season 9, which is this season, but I want to get back to also talking about albums. Last season, in season 8, I had all interviews, but this will be a mix. And Toto is, of course, one of my favorite bands. If you've listened to the podcast, you know that I have a book out called Toto, the Band, Not the Dog. It's my first book. It's out on all major platforms. And then my second book, which is called Yes, Indeed, Tales from Yes without John Anderson, is also out digitally and also in physical copy at your favorite bookseller. So please check those out. Also, check out Slang of Ages podcasts on your favorite podcatcher. It's also on YouTube. Please make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And of course, it's on your favorite podcatcher. And you can find the podcast at www.slangofages.com. So let's get to Toto 20. Now, this is season 9, and we've talked about only one Toto album so far, despite the fact that Toto is one of my favorite bands. We've talked about Toto, the seventh album, which is called The Seventh One. I think it was back in season number 2. Toto 20 is a little bit different than the other Toto albums. And you may know, of course, you should know, of course, of Toto 4, their Grammy Award winning multi platinum album. Toto 20 is actually an album, which is not the 20th album, but an album to mark the band's 20th anniversary. And it was celebrating songs from 1977 to 1997. And it was released in the UK in 1998. It was released in the United States December 8th, 1998, and on Columbia Records. The album was produced by co-founders David Paich and Steve Lukather. Actually, it was executive produced by those because it contains songs, like I mentioned, from that 20-year time period, mostly through their Columbia Records time period. And it was also a period where the band was kind of in flux because the band had gotten together for their 1995 album Tambu, which is a very good album. And it was when they were a four-piece, just Simon Phillips, their new drummer, who was new at the time, was with them for over 20 years. Then you had David Paich on keyboard, Steve Lukather on guitar, and Mike Porcaro on bass. It was a four-piece. And then in 1999, the band came back with the album Minefields, which saw the return of their original lead singer, Bobby Kimball. He was on the first 4 Toto albums and started pre-production for Isolation, their 5th album, but was fired before the album was completed. This album, Toto 20, covers that time period, and it covers their lead singers, Bobby Kimball, Joseph Williams, and Steve Lukather, the guitarist. It does not have any Fergie Fredrickson songs, who was on the Isolation. It doesn't have any of the songs by John Michael Byron, who was their singer for just their greatest hits album, on those 4 new songs. Still, I think it's a pretty comprehensive set. It also includes some Steve Porcaro work and co-writes. Well, Steve Porcaro, who left after the completion of their 6th album, did not sing lead on any of the songs on this album. He did contribute to some of the writing. And of course, Steve Porcaro rejoined the band towards Toto 14 and did a bunch of touring with them before leaving again, pursuing his own solo career. So let's get started and talk about Toto 20. As I mentioned, it covers that 20-year time period, and it features those lead vocalists, and it had some really great songs which were completed by the core members of the band or remixed or produced by David Paich and Steve Lukather. And the first song on Toto 14 is very fascinating. I think it's one of their best songs, actually. It's a song called Going Home, and it's a song written by David Paich and Joseph Williams. It was recorded back in 1989 and features Steve Lukather on guitar, David Paich on keyboards, Mike Porcaro on drums, Jeff Porcaro, the founding drummer, on drums and percussion. I think I said Mike Porcaro on drums, it's Mike Porcaro on bass, obviously, and Bobby Kimball on lead vocal. Backing vocals include Joseph Williams, Steve Lukather, David Paich, and Jim Horn handles the saxophone playing. It was recorded in, like I mentioned, 1989, and it was recorded by the great late Greg Lindani and Shep Longsdale at the Complex in LA. And this was a song actually written by, like I mentioned, Joseph Williams, although he did not sing lead on it. And it was originally recorded to see if Bobby Kimball would make a good fit and come back in a band after he had left after Toto 4. So they recorded it for the Greatest Hits album. They presented it to their Columbia Records at the time, the record company. And the record company said, no, we don't think it's a hit and we don't think it's the direction you should go. So they were actually shocked that Columbia didn't like the song. And they went back and decided to continue to get new songs together for the Greatest Hits package, which had 4 new songs on it. But Bobby Kimball was not invited back in the band. And it's a reason why this song opens the album. That's because it's darn good. It's a driving rock song, really built on Lukather's chugging electric guitar leads and some great swirling keyboards and synthesizers by David Paich. Bobby Kimball sings his ass off. He's a great vocalist when he's on. And on this song, he was on. And I've heard live versions of this song with Joseph Williams, who sings it in the same key, the key he originally wrote it in. And he sounds great too. But I think Bobby Kimball really nails this 5-minute song. It's just a shock that the powers at Columbia thought this wasn't good. It's an excellent song. So great way to start the album. I think that the lyrics that Williams and Paich come up with are very good as well. It has some great imagery. It starts out with the lyric, midnight on a southern highway, don't know if I'm going the right way. I haven't seen a single sign for miles. All the stormy weather keeping us together. How long has it been since I've seen your smile? In this tunnel called the night, I can finally see the light. I've got it burning deep inside. I thought you might understand. I'm driving as fast as I can, but you said you wait for me. Great lyrics, great guitar work, great keyboards. It's just David Paich with no Steve Porcaro, and it works really well. And it leads us to a song which is much older, one of the older songs on the album, and a song again which I'm the shock was never released as a on an album or even as a single. It's a song called "Tale of a Man." And this was a song like Going Home, which has been played live by various versions of Toto. Tale of a Man comes from 1979. It was originally conceived for, I believe, the second Toto album, Hydra, and it features the original Toto band, which is Steve Lukather on guitar, David Paich on piano, Steve Porcaro on synthesizer, the great David Hungate, the original Toto bassist, on bass, Jeff Porcaro on drums, Bobby Kimball on lead vocals, and backing vocals by Lukather and Paich. And it was originally, like I mentioned, recorded in 79. It was remixed by Elliot Shiner in 1998. And it has a great vibe to it. It is just funky, but it's also has this weird prog rock drive to it. Jeff Porcaro's drumming is slightly behind the beat, and intentionally so, obviously. The bass is driving, and the synthesizer parts that Steve Porcaro comes up with are vintage Steve Porcaro, great soundscapes, great swirling. And what happens at the end of the song, which they didn't really do live for the song when they played it, is it has this great vamp at the end, which which really reminds me of Lowdown, which David Paich co-wrote with Boz Scaggs. Just a great feel. And the song's lyrics touch on kind of the the Manson murder kind of thing. Um, for example, the chorus, see the circle spinning around, changing colors without a sound, helter skelter, doomsday plan, just another tale of a man. This is a great prog song. It's a great rock song, a great vocal. It is a shame it took so long to have it released because it really would have fit into Hydra, if not their first album, definitely Hydra. So we get to the third song, which is a composition written by David Paich and Joseph Williams and sang by Joseph Williams from 1986. It's called In a Word. I'm sorry, it's called Last Night. I'm skipping ahead. Last Night, which was written by Joseph Williams and David Paich, is sung by Joseph Williams. And this song is strong as well. It has a great pop feel to it. It was probably written around the time of Fahrenheit. I think it was recorded in 1987 with the great George Massenburg. So maybe that's around the seventh one period because Massenburg worked with Toto and Billy Payne to produce the seventh one. But it features Jeff Porcaro on drums again and percussion, Mike Porcaro on bass, David Paich on keyboards, Steve Lukather on guitar, Chris Thompson, who was with Manfred Mann's Earth Band on backing vocals. He also wrote songs with Patrick Simmons for his Arcade album, and it features a great horn chart by the great Jerry Hay, who worked with Toto on Toto 4, with Jerry Hay on trumpet with Cary Grant, and also featured Tom Scott on saxophone with Jim Horn on saxophone, and Chicago's James Pankow on trombone. It was, again, good pop feel, good keyboards, not really a good lead guitar solo, good lead guitar by Lukather. Not the greatest song, but a very good song, and a song which you thought the band would have picked up later for another album because I could see it fitting on the seventh one or even Fahrenheit before it, but it was never released until this album, and I'm glad they did release it. Then we move to the next song, which 19 comes from 1986, recorded by Shep Longsdale and mixed by Greg Landani from 1986. So this is probably around, well, they say it was around the Fahrenheit period. It was recorded around the Fahrenheit period. So that lineup features Lukather on lead guitar and David Paich on keyboards with Steve Porcaro on synthesizers, Mike Porcaro on bass, Jeff Porcaro on drums or percussion, and Joe Williams on lead vocals. It is a wonderful track. Now, this was written by Lukather, Steve Porcaro, Mike Porcaro, and Jeff Porcaro. Unusual that David Paich had no writing credit for this because he's usually involved in the writing for the band. And it really was just a great feel. I think the liner notes say that David Paich, when they started conceiving the song and arranging it and writing it, he wasn't in the studio. So that's why he probably got no writing credit. It was also written around the time they wrote the song Martyr Eyes. A good feel. Um, it has a nice rock guitar hook from Lukather, nice distorted kind of Brian May feel to it, and a nice breakdown. And again, this is another song which I, for the life of me, can't figure out why they didn't want to bring this song back and do it for the seventh one album or even for a later album because it really did hit all the bases for Toto. It had that great synth part, those great synth parts by Steve Porcaro, and a great Brian May like lead guitar part by Steve Lukather. That brings us to track number 5, which is Modern Eyes. Now, this one is a little unusual. It is a song written and sung by David Paich, at a time when David Paich really wasn't singing that many lead vocals. And it was around the same time, like I mentioned, that In a Word came out. It was recorded in 1986, so around the Fahrenheit period, which features Lukather on guitars, David Paich on lead vocal and keyboards, Steve Porcaro handling the synthesizer programming, Mike Porcaro on bass, and then you have Jeff Porcaro on the program drums. He used a synclavier drum programming and timbales, and Dave Sanborn on alto saxophones. It also features Lukather and Page on backing vocals. So this is another song. I think there are three songs of Steely Dan in the not Steely Dan in the total canon where Jeff Porcaro programmed drums instead of played them. Um, and I think those fall from the in the Fahrenheit era, the song Fahrenheit and um, Without Your Love are songs which don't have real drums, but Jeff Porcaro programmed those. Modernized has a nice reggae feel to it. It sounds like Jeff Porcaro playing a nice reggae beat, very reminiscent of what Jim Keltner would play, because Jim Keltner likes reggae as well. And um, has a great lead vocal by David Paich. Song could have been included on the Toto album again. I don't know why this one was never revisited. Maybe they thought it was too pop-like. Lyrics are good. Some of the criticisms of Toto is that their lyrics, especially songs that David Paich writes by himself, are a little light or a little too mystical. But here, the lyrics really work. The first verse is, "She knows you bad. You don't sing songs of love. She treats you right. She treats you like a web of love. You know who's of her heart, her notions of society. You belong to know, and she just likes our societies." I think it is. So it goes on like that. Good reggae feel. It's not the deepest Toto song, but it's a good song. And again, one which I'm surprised was not revisited by the band. The reggae groove is unusual for Toto, but they show their versatility. And if you're a Toto fan, you know how versatile they are. And that gets us to the next song, which is a beautiful ballad. And again, another song which, what the hell were they thinking? Why was this never previously released? This is the song Right Part of Me. And this is a composition which was written by Bobby Kimball and David Paich, is sung by Bobby Kimball. It was also originally recorded in 1984. So that was a period after really Bobby Kimball had left after Toto 4. But the song was never fleshed out and never released. And the song features the second phase of Toto in that Mike Porcaro replaced David Hungate on bass, but you had Bobby Kimball on lead vocal, David Paich on piano, Steve Lukather on guitar, of course Jeff Porcaro on drums, and Lukather and Paich on backing vocals. There's no Steve Porcaro on this song, but it was a period before or around the time they were recording Isolation, before, like I mentioned, Kimball left. It also features a wonderful and driving string arrangement by the late Marty Paich and the fantastic James Newton Howard. And the strings were conducted by Marty Paich, who was of course David Paich's father. And it was recorded by Greg Landani in Record One in 1984. Um, the band said this was a homage to Elton John, and it has a feeling which is really it's grand. It's a grand feel. The strings are amazing. They're wonderful. They are bold, and the song musically is as strong as anything Toto has done. But again, not released until this album. And I could see why it wasn't released after Toto 4 because Bobby Kimball was pretty much gone. So I'm glad I got to see the light of day here. It really works well. And then we get to the song Mrs. Johnson, which was sung by Bobby Kimball and written by David Paich and Steve Lukather. It comes from 1977, which was probably around the time of their first album. So it features the original band, including, of course, David Hungate on bass. So it was recorded by Tom Knox back in 1977 at Studio 55. Um, I don't know why this one wasn't revisit it for Hydra, or even better yet, Turn Back, because it would have been one of the stronger songs to Turn Back. But it wasn't. It is a basic love song with a driving acoustic piano by David Paich and some really interesting synth parts. It also has a nice driving, drawn out in guitar solo by Steve Lukather, but wasn't released until now. And if you remember, if Steve Lukather had no writing credits on the first Toto album, I think he only had one writing credit on Hydra, and I think he had two writing credits on Turn Back. So it would have been nice to hear his writing on the first album. The song would have fit, but it didn't. And again, Bobby Kimball delivers a strong lead vocal, really at the lower part of his range, but it really works. The lyrics start with, "Hey girl, you're good to see. Love your face shining down on me. How does it feel with the warm winds blowing? Hey girl, you're looking good to know. Love your smell. I love your glow. How does it feel with the warm winds blowing?" So not their deepest lyric, but again, a strong. Well, that's the wrong song. Oh, I gave you the wrong lyric there. The song works anyway without a fantastic lyric. It's just a really, really good mid-tempo rock song. So the correct lyrics to Mrs. Johnson are, um, "Know these words are wrong to say. Need you more and more each day. Hey, Mrs. Johnson, give me an answer as fast as you can. Hey, Mrs. Johnson, don't you know I really love you?" So yeah, not the strongest lyric, but in terms of pop from the 70s, it still works pretty well. The next song is one which you may be familiar with because it was released as a single, but it wasn't released by Toto, and that is the wonderful song Miss Sun. And actually, this song made a reappearance on the last Toto album featuring Steve Porcaro, which I can't remember the name of it right now, but um, this is a song which they thought they would dig back up and delve into. Miss Sun is, of course, known because Boz Scaggs released the song and it became a hit for him. And rightfully so. Miss Sun is really a strong song, which was written by David Paich in 77. And the song was originally recorded with David Paich and most of the original band. So Lukather and all guitars, excuse me, all guitars. David Paich handles a mini moog, all keyboards and lead vocal, Jeff Porcaro on drums, and overdub bass by David Hungate with Lisa Del Bell on the um, lead harmony vocals. This was really recorded as a demo for the band to get their first record contract for their Toto album. And they never really revisited to fix it, to release it. That's why the original bass part had just mini moog from David Paich. And when they completed the demo, Hungate added some bass fills, but most of the bass is actually David Paich on keyboard. It's a weird song because it also has no Steve Porcaro, despite the fact that Steve Porcaro was in the band since its inception. Um, Paige handles the legal vocals, and his vocals are good. They're not Boz Scaggs, but they're good. And I think the liner notes talks about how he was imitating Al Green, and you can hear that when you hear the song. But it really works well. Miss Sun is just a delight, and I think Skaggs recorded the song also about the same time back in '77 with Porcaro, Jeff Porcaro, Steve Porcaro, Steve Lukather, and David Hungate, along with David Paich. So the song has seen some great times, and it is a interesting song. Um, and if you find the Boz Scaggs, Donald Fagen, Michael McDonald video from the Dukes of September, Skaggs sings this song as well. But it is on a Toto live album, and I encourage you, if you don't know Miss Sun, to check it out because it's a great song. Next, we get to another older song from Toto Canon, which is "Love Is a Man's World," and this song was recorded back in 1977 as well. It's another lead vocal by David Paich and another David Paich composition. And of course, if you're a Toto fan, you know that Toto was originally supposed to be, the Toto album was originally supposed to be a David Paich solo album, but he wanted to bring his friends along. That's why almost all the songs on the original album, the first album, the debut album, were written by David Paich. Um, he had his cans, he had this list of stack of songs which he used for the first two albums. And then slowly the band, especially Lukather, and Bobby Kimball to a lesser extent got into writing as well. So Love is a Man's World features Steve Lukather on lead guitar, of course, David Paich on Moog bass, piano, and synthesizers and lead vocals. Steve Porcaro makes his appearance on synthesizers and programming, and Jeff Porcaro on drums and percussion with backing vocals by Bobby Kimball. It also features Michael Boddicker, who's a wonderful synthesizer programmer on programming the synthesizers for this. And it was recorded back in 1977 at Studio 55 and I think Devon Studios by the great engineer Tom Knox. So this song was also supposed to be one which they thought they might release at some point in their first or second albums. Great R&B feel. And the song has a breakdown at the end, which kind of double time R&B with some really great Moog bass playing by Paich and some scat vocals by Bobby Kimball. Another song which make you scratch your head why wasn't it released on the first three albums or so. But it wasn't. And that brings us to now, if you have the CD of this, track 10 is called On the Run. This is a song which was wasn't originally released. It was written by David Paich and sung by David Paich. And I'm sorry, it was written by David Paich, but On the Run was sung by Steve Lukather. It was written by David Paich, Lukather, and Fee Waybill of the Tubes. In this version from the original version of Toto 20 was from the Montreux Jazz Festival of 1991. It was a song they wrote, I think, around the time of, I think they wrote On the Run around the time of their first or second album, but it was never released. And it borrows heavily from the Steely Dan song Black Friday. So you have that Jeff Porcaro, that Jeff Porcaro shuffle, which he kind of borrowed a little bit from the great Bernard Purdie. It's really fast paced and the song just moves. It is one of their hardest rocking songs too. When it finally came out, which is in this set, and it's also on one of their live albums being sung by Joseph Williams. The song really, really worked as a live song. So originally on Run, I think I said it was Joe Williams was singing it, but no, Steve Lukather sang the lead vocal and handled the guitars. David Paich handled the keyboards. Mike Porcaro on bass, Jeff Porcaro on drums, Chris Trujillo on percussion, Fred White, Jackie McMagee, and Jenny Douglas McRae, their longtime backing vocalists on backing vocals. That's a version of Toto 20. Live, it smokes. Just a great rock song. It was a great way to get the audience going. When it was released a second time on their on their live album, which I can't remember the name of it for the life of me. I think it was a 35th anniversary live album. It features Joseph Williams singing the lead and still has that driving, pulsating feel to it, even though on that version, the last version that was released, it features, of course, the great Simon Phillips on drums. So after On the Run, we get to, and this again on the original version, because I think the re-release version of Toto 20 doesn't have these songs. The next song is Dave's Gone Skiing. And Dave's Gone Skiing is from Tambu. With this version on Toto 20, it is a live version which was recorded also live in 1997 at in Johannesburg, South Africa. And it was written by Mike Porcaro, Steve Lukather, and Simon Phillips for the Tambu album. This version of Dave's Gone Skiing features the great Simon Phillips on drums, Steve Lukather on guitar, David Paich on keyboards, Mike Porcaro on bass. And it is Dave's Gone Skiing. If you haven't listened to Tambu, it's one of their better albums, if not one of their best albums. It's just a great rock instrumental. It was written because the band was together recording Tambu, and on one particular day, Dave was he didn't come to the recording session because he had actually gone skiing. So the guys just started to jam, and they came up with this great jam, which became this song. And for the live version here, it's just as powerful, if not more, than the studio version from Tambu. Simon Phillips appears in only, I think, 2 songs on Toto 20. And he was the longest serving drummer on Toto. And he's an amazing here. The song is great prog rock / jazz fusion. No vocals, just a great guitar part and a great synthesizer and keyboard solo by David Paich. So basically a 4-piece band, and they knock it out of the park. The last songs on Toto 20 are what you would expect. It is a version of Africa melded with a African song, Baba Munzane. So for the beginning of that part of Baba Munzane, the background singers Jenny Douglas McRae and John James sing along with backing vocalists from Family Factory, who also handle arsenal of percussion, and that leads into Africa. This was arranged primarily by Simon Phillips, who wanted to do Africa a different way. So you have this African backbeat, African drummers, African vocals. Then you go into the song Africa, and we all know Africa. It's their biggest hit, their money-making hit. And this version of Africa features Lukather, guitarist, Paich on lead vocals and keyboards, Mike Porcaro on bass, Simon Phillips on drums, and Jenny Douglas McRae and John James on backing vocals. The song, this is probably my favorite version of Africa. It doesn't include the usual drum loop or drum programming that they've used in the past. Even when Jeff Porcaro played Africa, they used a drum loop, but the percussion really works here. Simon Phillips does a wonderful job bringing these 2 elements together to make something new out of something very old. And Africa's a great song anyway, but this version stands head and toe above all the other great versions of the song. And that really is it for Toto 20. 13, I think it's 13 or 14 great songs, most of them rarities. They have a greatest hits album, which has, I think, 4 new songs on it, all 4 of which are really great songs. Then they have, of course, the oldest new box set, which I encourage people to get if you're a Toto fan. If you're not a Toto fan, the greatest hits will be a great entry point to Toto, but you have to find Toto 20. It's available reissued, part of the oldest new box set. I think there are also some single disc of Toto 20 still around, which had the original running order, original mix. So I encourage you to do that. I did not include a review of Toto 20 in my book, Toto the band, not the dog. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned it here because it is an essential part of Toto's discography. And of course, I love Toto. There are so many great Toto albums, which we'll get to in season 10 as well. In the meantime, though, go out, buy my book, Toto, the band, not the dog, and also my new book, Yes Indeed, Tales from Yes about John Anderson, which is about the band Yes. My third book will be out probably the summer of 2026. So look for that. Follow the Slang of Ages podcast, share it with a friend. If you can rate it on the platform you listen to it on. Make sure you go to YouTube and subscribe, like, and share. I have a Patreon page. Look for the Slang of Ages podcast on Patreon, and you can join the executive producers, Cynthia Tom, Vinicio Cifuentes, and Cheryl Frazier. I appreciate all of you. Thank you for joining me for season 9. I will see you in 2 weeks for the next episode of the podcast. And you all take care.